Hello everybody, I'm going to show you the anatomy of the heart. This is a human heart. The human heart is a conical shaped organ, cone shaped organ located mostly in the left side of the thoracic cavity. 2/3 part of your heart is located in the left side and 1/3 is located in the right side. The size of your heart is like the size of your fist. So the size is almost same size of your fist. As I told you, that heart is a cone shaped organ. That means it has a pointed end. This lower pointed end is called the apex of the heart, which is located downwards and slightly to the left. So this is your left side of the heart and this is the right side. So it is downwards and slightly to the left, and this is called the apex. Okay, and the posterior surface of the heart is called the base. The main function of the heart is pumping the blood. Because of the pumping action of the heart, the blood circulates. So the force that moves the blood is given by the pumping action of the heart. Okay, so you see here that a number of large blood vessels are attached to the upper surface of the upper part of the heart. By two different colors you can see that which ones transport or carry deoxygenated blood and which one transport the oxygenated blood. Okay, so the red colored blood vessels transport oxygen rich blood or oxygenated blood, and blue ones transport deoxygenated or carbon dioxide rich blood. Okay, so first we'll see the heart from the outside. In human heart there are 4 chambers, 2 atria and 2 ventricles. Atria are the upper 2 chambers of the heart. So the atria are here. This is left side. Your right side is this heart's left side. So this is left side, this is the right side. Okay, so this is left atrium. Atrium is singular, atria is plural. So this is left atrium and this is right atrium. Okay, and in the anterior surface or anterior part of your atrium has an extended structure or extra room for the heart, and that is called the auricle. So this is a pouch-like structure attached to the anterior of your right atrium. This is called the right auricle, and this is attached to the anterior of your left atrium. This is the left atrium and this is the anterior. So this is the left auricle. So your heart has 2 auricles. Those are actually to give more capacity or space inside the atrium. Then lower 2 chambers are ventricles, and this is the right ventricle here and this is the left ventricle here. Okay, so you see the apex is actually at the lower end of the left ventricle. Okay, so again 4 chambers. This is the left atrium, and this is the left auricle. This is the right atrium. This is the right auricle. So two atria are the upper two chambers, and lower two chambers are ventricles. This is left ventricle below the left atrium, and this is the right ventricle below the right atrium. Okay, and the atria, right and left, and ventricles, right and left, are separated by septum. The two atria are separated by interatrial septum, and two ventricles are separated by interventricular septum to keep the oxygenated and deoxygenated blood separated. Remember that the atria receive the blood from outside and give the blood to the ventricle, respective ventricle, same sides ventricle. So the left atrium receives oxygenated blood from the lungs and gives the oxygenated blood to the left ventricle. Right atrium receives deoxygenated blood, not oxygenated, deoxygenated blood from the body, and gives deoxygenated blood to the right ventricle. So now you can see that your left side of the heart, that means left atrium and left ventricle, both contain oxygenated blood, and right atrium and right ventricle both contain deoxygenated blood. Okay, I am repeating again. Left atrium receives oxygenated blood from the lungs and gives to the left ventricle. Right atrium receives deoxygenated blood from the body and gives it to the right ventricle. Okay. Okay, so let's see the anterior surface of the heart. This is the anterior surface, and you see the blood vessels are attached to the wall of the heart. We'll try to identify those blood vessels. Okay, so first, from this part of the aorta, this is called the ascending aorta, two arteries arise. One is the right coronary artery here. This is right side, so this is the right coronary artery from the ascending aorta. And another one, you don't see the origin of that, but that one also arises from the ascending aorta. And here you can see this is the left coronary artery. So those are two main arteries enter into the wall of the heart. Right coronary artery, this one, and left coronary artery, this one. Okay, and then the left coronary artery divides. You see here the first branch here that goes like this, like a circle around the heart. So this one is called the circumflex artery. Okay, circumflex artery. And this one is the anterior interventricular artery. Anterior means in the front. This is the front side. Interventricular means in between the ventricles. So that's why this is called the anterior interventricular artery. Okay. And this is the right coronary artery, and these are the marginal arteries, branches of the right coronary artery. Okay, and now we'll see inside. So this is the right atrium, this is the left atrium, and this is inside the right ventricle, and this is inside the left ventricle. Okay, so first we'll see the right atrium. You see here two large veins. This is one called the superior vena cava, and this is inferior vena cava. This one brings deoxygenated blood from the upper part of the body into the right atrium, and this one, inferior vena cava, brings deoxygenated blood from the lower part of the body. So from the body, deoxygenated blood is brought into the right atrium by these two large veins, superior vena cava from the upper part of the body, inferior vena cava from the lower part of the body. Okay, and you see the opening. This is the opening of superior vena cava into the right atrium, and this is the opening of the inferior vena cava into the right atrium. Okay, and there is another small opening here that is for the coronary sinus. Coronary sinus is a vein that brings deoxygenated blood from the wall of the heart into the right atrium. So those are the three veins drain deoxygenated blood into the right atrium: superior vena cava, inferior vena cava, and coronary sinus. Also inside is the partition between right and left atrium. So interatrial septum between the right and left atrium. This depression is called fossa ovalis in the interatrial septum, and in fetus this area is actually an opening between right and left atrium. That opening remains until birth. So in fetus, that is a passage between the right and left atrium. Why that one remains open in fetus? Because fetus lung doesn't start to work until birth. So the blood between right and left atrium enter from one chamber to another chamber. The hole between right and left atrium is called foramen oval. This is foramen oval here, but immediately after birth, that foramen gets closed. Okay, and it takes first few months. So the foramen gets closed by a membrane, and that area remains as a depression, and that is called the fossa ovalis. So foramen ovalis is a foramen or opening between right and left atrium through the interatrial septum in the fetus, and after birth that gets closed and remains as fossa ovalis. The muscles in the wall of the atrium, you see these muscles, these folds, these are called pectinate muscles. In the left atrium, you see the pectinate muscles. In the right atrium, in the wall, pectinate muscles. Okay. Then we will see the ventricle. This is the interventricular septum here. This partition here, interventricular septum, and inside the ventricle you have the muscle. This is called the papillary muscle. So this is a papillary muscle, this is also a papillary muscle, and from the papillary muscle string-like structures arise and get attached to the atrioventricular valve or AV valve. So this is a papillary muscle. These are strings called the chordae tendineae. These are chordae tendineae, and this is in the left side. So this is left atrioventricular or AV valve, and in the wall of the ventricle, these ridges are called trabeculae corni. So trabeculae corni are these ridges in the wall of the ventricle. Okay, and the atrioventricular valve, the right atrioventricular valve is this one, and left atrioventricular valve is this one, right? So this is the mitral valve. Left atrioventricular valve is also called mitral valve, and it is also known as bicuspid valve. Why? Because it has two leaf-like structures. Bicusp, bi means two, cuspid means leaf-like. Okay, so this is left AV valve or mitral valve, also called bicuspid valve. It allows the blood flow from the atrium to the ventricle. So it opens only towards the ventricle. It will only let the blood enter from the atrium to the ventricle. When ventricle contracts, it will get closed, so it will not let the blood to enter back into the atrium. This is right AV valve, and right AV valve is tricuspid because it has three leaf-like structures. Okay, same function. It allows the blood flow from the right atrium into the right ventricle. Okay. Now we'll see the large blood vessels attached to the heart. They are attached to the heart because some of them bring the blood into the heart and some of them take the blood out from the heart. Okay, so you have already seen the superior vena cava and inferior vena cava. They bring deoxygenated blood into the right atrium. Okay, so this is superior vena cava, this is inferior vena cava. This one is called the pulmonary trunk, and pulmonary trunk takes the deoxygenated blood out from the right ventricle. So you see here, from the right ventricle, the blood enters into the pulmonary trunk. What kind of blood? Deoxygenated blood, because right side contains deoxygenated blood. Okay, and where the deoxygenated blood should go to get the oxygen? To the lung. So that's why this is called the pulmonary. It is going to the taking the blood to the lung. Okay, so this is the pulmonary trunk, and it divides into two pulmonary arteries. So this is the left side, so this is left pulmonary artery, and the right one going that way under the aorta, and this is the right pulmonary artery. Okay, so the pulmonary trunk takes deoxygenated blood out from the right ventricle, and it divides into two arteries, left and right pulmonary arteries, and they go to the lungs. The left pulmonary artery goes to the left lung, right pulmonary artery goes to the right lung. This is the aorta. It takes oxygenated blood. So from which ventricle? Left ventricle. It contains oxygenated blood, and when the left ventricle pumps, the blood enters into the ascending aorta first, and then this is the aortic arch, and this is the descending aorta. So aorta has three parts. The ascending is the first part, then aortic arch, and descending aorta. Okay. Now, since left ventricle sends the blood to the body through the aorta, the pumping action or force of contraction in the left ventricle is much stronger than the force of contraction in the right ventricle. In the left ventricle, the force of contraction must be stronger or more, because it is sending blood to the body, whole body. Right ventricle is pumping blood or sending blood to the lungs, and lungs are located just beside the heart. So this right ventricle doesn't need to pump as forcefully as the left ventricle. And that's why if you see the wall of the left ventricle and the wall of right ventricle, you see the right ventricular wall is much thinner and left ventricular wall is much thicker. Thicker means more powerful or forceful contraction. Okay. So now here you see these are called the pulmonary veins, and pulmonary veins bring oxygenated blood from the lung into the left atrium, because you know that left atrium receives oxygenated blood from the lungs. So two pairs, these two are called left pulmonary veins and these two are right pulmonary veins, and they bring oxygenated blood back from the lungs into the left atrium. Okay, so let's quickly go over. So this is how the human heart looks like. It is a conical shaped organ located mostly in the left side of the thorax or thoracic cavity. 2/3 part of the heart is located in the left side and about 1/3 in the right side. That's why we say mostly in the left side. Okay, and this is the left side of the heart and this is the right side of the heart, and the heart has 4 chambers. Okay, atria receive the blood from outside and give the blood to the same side's ventricle, and ventricle pumps the blood to the outside of the heart. So let's first see the left side. This is the left side. Okay, so this pointed part is called the apex of the heart, and this is the base of the heart. Posterior surface of the heart is the base of the heart. And also in the wall of the heart, you see you have the arteries and veins to supply blood to the wall of the heart. So these large blood vessels to take the blood out or bring the blood in from outside, and these smaller blood vessels, arteries and veins, are to supply blood to the wall of the heart's own blood supply. Okay, so first let's see upper 2 chambers. This is the right atrium and this is the left atrium, and you see this pouch-like structure attached to the anterior of the atrium. This is an extended room or extra space inside the atrium, and this flap-like or pouch-like part is called the auricle. So this is the right atrium, this is the right auricle, this is the left atrium, and this part is the left auricle. Okay. Then this is the right ventricle, this is the left ventricle. Now we'll see inside. Sorry, this is the left atrium. It receives oxygenated blood from the lungs. 2 pairs of pulmonary veins. Here you see 1 pair. These are left pulmonary veins and these are right pulmonary veins. So 4 of them, those pulmonary veins, bring oxygenated blood from the lung into the left atrium. Okay, and then left atrium gives blood to the left ventricle. Okay, and here you see between the left atrium and left ventricle the valve that controls the flow and direction of the blood. This valve is called the left atrioventricular or AV valve. Why it is atrioventricular? Because it is between the atrium and ventricle. That's why it is called AV or atrioventricular valve. Okay. Left atrioventricular valve is also known as mitral valve. Probably you have heard the name mitral valve, and mitral valve defect is commonly heard. Also we hear the term valvar stenosis, or if the valve gets harder and loses its ability to move, open and close, that is called stenosis. So this is left AV valve or mitral valve, and it has two leaf-like structures. That's why it is called bicuspid. Okay. Now let's see the right atrium and right ventricle. This is the right atrium and this is the right ventricle, and you have right AV valve or atrioventricular valve, which has three leaf-like structures or parts. That's why it is called tricuspid. So left is bicuspid, right is tricuspid. Okay, and there are semilunar valves. One is here. You see, this is the pulmonary trunk. This large artery is called the pulmonary trunk, and at the beginning of the pulmonary trunk, this is called the pulmonary semilunar valve, and near the entrance of the aorta, this is the aorta. Also you have semilunar valves. It's difficult to see here. That is called aortic semilunar valve. So at the beginning of pulmonary trunk, pulmonary semilunar valve, and at the beginning of aorta you have the aortic semilunar valve. Okay, so those are four sets of valves: left AV valve or mitral valve, which is bicuspid; right AV valve or tricuspid; and pulmonary semilunar and aortic semilunar. Okay. So now we'll see the large blood vessels attached to the upper surface of the or upper part of the heart. This is called the aorta. It takes the oxygenated blood out from the left ventricle. Okay, and this part is called the ascending aorta, and then this U-shaped part, inverted U, that is called the aortic arch. Looks like an arch. And this part is the descending aorta. Descending aorta is really very long, goes all the way down to the abdominal cavity. Okay, so ascending aorta is the shortest part. Okay, and from the aortic arch, three arteries arise. Okay, from the right to the left, brachiocephalic trunk, left common carotid artery, and left subclavian artery. So those are three from the aortic arch. Okay, and this is the pulmonary trunk. It takes deoxygenated blood, that's why it looks blue, deoxygenated blood from the right ventricle and takes it to the lung. So deoxygenated blood enters into the pulmonary trunk from the right ventricle, and you see the pulmonary trunk divides into two branches. These are called the pulmonary arteries. This is the left side, so this is left pulmonary artery, takes the blood to the left lung, and right one goes under the aorta, and this is the right pulmonary artery. It takes blood to the right lungs. And here you see a ligament. This is called the ligamentum arteriosum. Ligamentum arteriosum. So in a fetus, this is another connection that takes the oxygenated blood from the aorta to the pulmonary trunk. After birth, this artery becomes non-functional because lung starts to function. So this artery becomes a ligament, and that is called the ligamentum arteriosum.